Muy buenos días a todos y a todas. Bienvenidos a este Palacio de Congresos de Gijón, que hoy nos acoge y nos recibe para celebrar este foro INCYDE School Asturias, Cumbre Equilibria. Es un nombre largo, lo sé, pero la jornada lo merece porque es muy intensa y lo vais a comprobar durante la jornada de hoy. Yo voy a explicar muy brevemente, ya encima vamos un poco mal de tiempo, el porqué de esta jornada, por qué estamos aquí, qué vamos a hacer, de qué vamos a hablar y la dinámica en sí de la cumbre. Para empezar, contaros quién nos trae aquí. Es una jornada que está organizada por la Fundación INCYDE y Gijón Impulsa y cofinanciada por el Programa Operativo de Empleo, Formación y Educación del Fondo Social Europeo. Hoy queremos hablar aquí de innovación, queremos hablar de emprendimiento, de oportunidades de negocio, de cómo aplicar la tecnología al territorio sin que pierda su esencia, a la alimentación sin dejar de ser saludable, a la salud o al deporte, consiguiendo sus máximos beneficios y rendimiento. Así que hemos decidido dividir este foro en tres grandes ámbitos: en tecnología, en turismo y en territorio. Vamos a tener mesas redondas, vamos a tener voces de grandes expertos como Marco María Pedraso o Alexander Grant, que nos van a hablar de innovación al servicio de las ciudades, del bienestar de los ciudadanos, voces expertas en nueva alimentación, también de la de siempre, avances en salud, turismo activo o las claves de una vida saludable. Y todo eso aquí, en Gijón, en Asturias. Y no es casual. ¿Y sabéis por qué? Porque los asturianos sois buenos en muchas cosas, pero especialmente en tres: en comer, en vivir y en pensar. Así que gracias por estar aquí. Vamos a comenzar ya la inauguración oficial de esta cumbre. En primer lugar, voy a dar la palabra a Félix Baragaño, que es presidente de la Cámara de Comercio de Gijón. Don Félix, cuando usted quiera.
Alcaldesa de Gijón, subdirector general de la Fundación INCYDE, resto de autoridades de la Corporación de Gijón, señoras, señores, empresarios, emprendedores, buenos días y bienvenidos a este Palacio de Congresos del recinto ferial Luis Adaro. La Cámara de Comercio de Gijón tiene el enorme placer de acoger hoy el Foro INCYDE School Asturias, Cumbre Equilibria. Un espacio de ideas y propuestas sobre los retos que plantean la innovación en el mercado global y específicamente en el terreno de la tecnología, el turismo y el territorio. En una entrevista publicada hace unos meses, el arquitecto británico y premio Princesa de Asturias de las Artes, Norman Foster, al ser preguntado de cómo debía de ser para él el lugar de trabajo ideal, respondía: debe ser un sitio al que quieras ir y donde quieras estar, que te dé libertad, un lugar donde se respire aire puro y donde las fronteras entre trabajo y ocio se diluyan. Se trata, como dice Norman Foster, de crear entornos que nos hagan la vida más fácil, apostando por la sostenibilidad en la salud, la alimentación o en el tiempo libre, y ello en un contexto que favorezca el emprendimiento avanzado. De todo esto trataremos en esta jornada. Por ello, que quiero comenzar agradeciendo a la Fundación INCYDE el esfuerzo que realiza al organizar en nuestra ciudad este foro, junto a la sociedad Gijón Impulsa y contando para ello con la cofinanciación del Fondo Social Europeo. A su vez, la jornada de hoy se enmarca en un proyecto de más hondo calado, tanto para Gijón como para el conjunto de Asturias, la denominada incubadora de alta tecnología Equilibra, financiada en este caso por fondos FEDER con un presupuesto cercano al 1 millón de euros. Este ambicioso proyecto es uno de los 12 financiados por la Comisión Europea para el conjunto de España a través de la Fundación INCYDE, con el objetivo de promover la innovación y la transferencia de tecnología a las pymes y micropymes. El edificio que albergará esta incubadora en el Parque Científico y Tecnológico de Gijón ya se encuentra en una fase muy adelantada de construcción, gracias al impulso dado desde el propio Ayuntamiento. Esta incubadora, como ya he tenido oportunidad de mencionar en otras ocasiones, persigue promover la creación de empresas y proyectos ligados a los retos presentes en la sociedad en materia de salud, deporte o alimentación. Por su parte, desde la Cámara de Comercio de Gijón nos encargamos de gestionar la denominada oficina Movimiento Equilibria, la cual acabamos de lanzar la pasada semana, basada en la captación de proyectos empresariales viables y la mentorización de los mismos. Trataremos de apoyar y formar en habilidades de gestión y desarrollo a las pymes y micropymes de base tecnológica para proporcionarles una visión global de las distintas áreas funcionales de la empresa y capacitarlas para detectar, incluso por sí mismas, las oportunidades del mercado, así como orientarlas en la elaboración de propuestas para la participación en convocatorias de proyectos nacionales y europeos. Los objetivos de tan ambicioso proyecto son los que hoy se van a debatir en este foro, que cuenta con destacados expertos en los temas que acabo de citar y que nos darán una visión amplia sobre los retos que tenemos a día de hoy. La innovación es una necesidad ineludible si las empresas asturianas queremos ser competitivas en un mercado global que ofrece enormes posibilidades. Entre las grandes oportunidades que ofrece el mercado global a los emprendedores se encuentran los sectores de alimentación, la salud y el deporte, que antes se consideraban secundarios y que hoy han adquirido el rango de protagonistas en nuestro entramado económico. Los sectores transversales son sectores transversales que afectan a todos los órdenes de la sociedad, hasta el punto de estar transformándola. Asturias en general y Gijón muy en particular tiene un corazón industrial, pero compartido a la vez con una apuesta decidida por las ciencias de la salud y por el turismo. Incluso, si me permiten traerlo a colación, nuestra querida Feria Internacional de Muestras de Asturias, al igual que el resto de los eventos que se desarrollan en este recinto ferial, son un magnífico ejemplo en el que se combina la perfección de ambas apuestas: industria, salud, turismo ferial y congresual y, por supuesto, turismo en general. Además, desde esta Cámara de Comercio venimos apostando para que las ferias y congresos que se van celebrando a lo largo del año vayan siempre teniendo una clara apuesta por la tecnología, tanto en temáticas como en la forma de presentarlas. Sin duda alguna, el proyecto de la incubadora tecnológica Impulsa es una firme y decidida apuesta por situar la innovación como punta de lanza de nuestra estructura económica, tanto en la fase de formación como en la de emprendimiento. Y quiero concluir ya agradeciendo de nuevo al Ayuntamiento de Gijón por el rápido impulso al proyecto y a la Fundación INCYDE su trabajo y estrecha colaboración, tanto con los proyectos de esta Cámara como con los de nuestras homónimas de Avilés y Oviedo, lo que nos ha llevado a posicionarnos como referentes de emprendimiento e innovación en España. En definitiva, la temática que será hoy aquí objeto de debate y estudio ha de servir para fomentar la creación de riqueza y de desarrollo económico y, como consecuencia de ello, de bienestar social, conjugando este desarrollo con la defensa de entornos comprometidos con el medio ambiente y la responsabilidad social. Solo me resta desearles éxito en sus ponencias y debates y que estos den cumplida respuesta al objetivo con el que se ha diseñado este foro. Muchísimas gracias por su atención.
También quiero darles unas palabras de bienvenida a la alcaldesa de Gijón, Carmen Morillón. Alcaldesa, cuando quiera, por favor.
presidente de la Cámara de Comercio de Gijón, subdirector general de la Fundación INCYDE, señoras y señores, buenos días. Actualmente, en los países desarrollados, 1 de cada 5 personas es mayor de 65 años y en el horizonte de 25 años se prevé que lo sea 1 de cada 3. Los países en vías de desarrollo también siguen esas tendencias. Estamos ante unos datos demográficos sin precedentes y, por tanto, ante una nueva realidad que afrontar. Por ello, además del desafío que tenemos como sociedad envejecida, tenemos una oportunidad económica en torno a este sector. Una nueva realidad que, alejada de las connotaciones negativas, nos ofrezca nuevas oportunidades. Y en ese escenario necesitamos una vejez con mejores condiciones de salud y una vejez activa, que sea parte implicada en nuestra comunidad. Este reto necesita de una visión holística que moldee la ciudad en la que vivimos, transformando los servicios públicos en catalizadores de una mejor salud y siendo capaces de diseñar una conciencia público-privada y social en torno a unos mejores hábitos de vida. En el año 2050, parece ser que el 70% de la población mundial vivirá en núcleos urbanos. De hecho, no hace falta esperar hasta el año 2050. Según el último informe de Naciones Unidas sobre asentamientos urbanos, la gestión sostenible de las ciudades se ha convertido ya en un desafío extremadamente complejo para las instituciones. Y es que las ciudades que ha heredado el siglo XXI devoran recursos insaciablemente. Actúan como incontrolables generadores de residuos y han de afrontar los estragos de la falta de planificación ante el intenso éxodo rural que se produjo durante el siglo pasado. En los años 70, cuando el escritor de ciencia ficción Isaac Asimov se preguntaba ¿a cuántos seres humanos puede alimentar y sostener la Tierra y por medio de qué técnicas?, ya estaba poniendo sobre la mesa el debate en torno a la sostenibilidad. La ciudad del siglo XXI es una ciudad que tiene como uno de sus retos principales cuidar a su ciudadanía y trabajar con diligencia para mejorar las cotas de salud. En este escenario, Gijón tiene, creo a mi modo de ver, unas condiciones innatas para conseguirlo. Un paisaje natural incomparable, unos importantes activos para la práctica deportiva en entornos urbanos y rurales y un paisaje urbano que se transforma dando paso al peatón, al ciclista y al servicio público de transporte. Sin olvidarnos de nuestra industria agroalimentaria que nos permite pensar con optimismo en un futuro de una alimentación más saludable, cercana en su producción y variada en función de las estaciones. Pero el desafío sigue estando presente y en la era del cambio tecnológico no nos queda otra que explorar todas las vías posibles para actuar con una mayor eficiencia, usando la capacidad analítica que poseemos para ser preventivos en la gestión de la salud. Debemos convertir nuestras áreas sanitarias en verdaderos laboratorios de innovación y al mismo tiempo acompañar a nuestras empresas incipientes y consolidadas en su búsqueda de nuevos productos y servicios, pues son las mejores compañeras de viaje para elevar nuestra comprensión del desafío y afrontarlo con garantías. Hoy estamos todos aquí para reflexionar en torno a este desafío, en torno a qué medidas tenemos que tomar para favorecer una vida saludable y activa en las ciudades. Estamos aquí para invertir el ciclo de la despoblación, para convertir ese hándicap en oportunidad, para convertirlo en reto y utilizarlo como estimulante de nuestra creatividad. En este escenario hoy planteamos 3 grandes cuestiones. La primera, ¿cómo afrontamos nuestras urbes para favorecer, cómo transformamos nuestras urbes para favorecer una vida saludable y activa? Segundo, ¿cómo desarrollamos tecnología que permita generar impactos en este ámbito? Y tercero, ¿cómo nos podemos convertir en referencia de destino turístico saludable? Para este propósito hemos hecho una llamada internacional, también local, para que convivan en un mismo escenario Asturias y el mundo, de manera que obtengamos respuestas globales a cuestiones que son primero locales. Mañana recogeremos ese contenido y lo llevaremos a nuestro distrito de innovación, la Milla del Conocimiento, para que este relato que hoy se inicia aquí tenga continuidad y nos haga cooperar con todos los agentes en un nivel superior. Así pues, disfrutad de la jornada, bienvenidos a Gijón y muchas gracias.
Gracias, alcaldesa. El último turno de intervención de de estas palabras inaugurales para José María Párraga Ruiz, su director general de la Fundación INCYDE.
Alcaldesa, presidente, señores, señoras, buenos días a todos. Desde la Fundación INCYDE nos congratulamos de ver cómo las diferentes administraciones se ponen de acuerdo para trabajar en pro de una mejora de su región, de su ciudad. INCYDE, la Fundación INCYDE de las Cámaras de Comercio de España, apuesta decididamente desde hace aproximadamente 20 años por el emprendimiento como elemento disruptivo, como elemento imprescindible para mejorar nuestros entornos. Aquí vamos a hablar de salud. Yo creo que la región de Asturias es enormemente relevante en el conjunto del país en salud. Tenemos un paisaje y una comida estupenda, extraordinaria, diría yo. Y quizás lo que necesitamos son varias cosas. La primera, tal vez, que nos creamos que podemos ser ese entorno que hablaba la alcaldesa, receptor de ese turismo de calidad. Pero, a la vez, tenemos que creernos que somos capaces de dar los mejores servicios a toda esa gente que venga. Además, entiendo y creo tenerlo claro que el alineamiento con el crecimiento sostenible, con el crecimiento inteligente, es lo que hará de esta región, de esta ciudad, lo que yo creo que ya es, pero que, insisto, tenemos que poner en valor. Es cierto que las instituciones se han de apoyar, pero yo creo que también en una época, mejor dicho, en un cambio de época, en un cambio de paradigma, la sociedad también tiene que empujar. Y me estoy refiriendo a que el 8,47% más o menos de los españoles tienen la intención de emprender. Es un porcentaje escasísimo. Creo que la sociedad como tal debe de fortalecer ese ecosistema del emprendimiento como un elemento, insisto, disruptivo, un elemento que provoca que cambiemos o mejor dicho, que transformemos ese cambio de una manera óptima. Y esa manera óptima, sin duda que es obligado que tenga que ver con la tecnología. Es decir, estamos hablando de crecimiento sostenible, de Smart Cities. En definitiva, tenemos que incorporar de una manera decidida la tecnología a todo lo que hacemos. Y nuestros jóvenes, con esas inquietudes, con esa manera de trabajar a veces chocantes con lo tradicional, con lo establecido, seguramente nos ayudarán. Cambiemos la idea del fracaso. Emprender y fracasar es la primera piedra para triunfar. Insisto, apostemos por el emprendimiento, apostemos por nuestros jóvenes y, evidentemente, no tan jóvenes, pero hagamos de nuestro entorno algo realmente que permita un crecimiento sostenible, pero sobre todo que mantengamos el talento, que nuestros jóvenes, las personas que tienen algo que aportar a esta sociedad, a esta región, no se nos vayan a otros sitios. Para ello, insisto, hemos de establecer un ecosistema que este es una muestra de lo que pretende la Fundación INCYDE, trabajar decididamente en la mejora de un entorno que permita una mayor eficiencia y que nos permita ser mucho mejores de lo que somos. Y, por favor, empecemos a creer que eso es posible, porque la verdad es que estaba hablando el presidente de la Cámara de esa incubadora de transferencia de tecnología que se va a ubicar en la región, que es una de las 12 que efectivamente la Fundación INCYDE está poniendo en marcha en España como una experiencia piloto para luego ser trasladada al resto de Europa. Pero no solo eso, con los programas que se hacen de formación que nos mejoran, que nos dotan de capacidades, de herramientas para hacer las cosas cada vez un poco mejor, en definitiva, para generar riqueza y generar empleo, que es de lo que todos queremos, ¿no? Decir también que la Fundación INCYDE está poniendo en marcha un proyecto de coworking digitales, que en esta región habrá también alguno, porque lo que pretende la Fundación es que las cámaras de comercio sean las entidades que transformen digitalmente a nuestra sociedad, que apoyen a la micro, a la pequeña, a la mediana empresa en ese proceso de transformación imprescindible para la mejora de nuestra sociedad y como he dicho antes, la riqueza y la mejora del empleo. Daros las gracias. Ahora entramos en un momento en el que todos tenemos que estar abiertos de mente para los ponentes que vienen aquí. Yo creo que tienen muchas cosas que decirnos y nosotros hemos de prestar atención, porque muchas veces ver lo que se está haciendo en otros sitios nos abre la mente, nos permite iniciar actividades con claridad en cuanto a los procedimientos y a las metodologías que hemos de usar para conseguir el éxito. Daros las gracias por estar aquí y pues insisto, luchemos y apostemos por ese crecimiento inteligente, ese crecimiento sostenible, y la tecnología en los diferentes sectores en los que esta región ya es fuerte nos ayudará a triunfar. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, y ahora sí vamos a entrar un poquito en harina, pero antes, y aprovechando que veo que mucha gente tiene el móvil en la mano, y estoy convencido de que es porque están tuiteando sobre las jornadas, voy a aprovechar para recordaros el hashtag que estamos utilizando durante toda la jornada, #INCYDE, lo tenéis ahí, la I en Y, School en minúscula y Asturias en mayúscula. INCYDE, School, Asturias, tuitearnos, ¿vale? Y así vamos a empezar ya el turno de ponencias y de mesas redondas. Quiero pedir a todos los conferenciantes, a los ponentes, que se ajusten mucho al tiempo. Tenemos una jornada muy apretadita, hemos empezado tarde, con lo cual vamos a intentar ajustarnos los tiempos para que todo el mundo pueda contar en tiempo y forma sus argumentos. Yo, de una manera delicada, diré que se ha acabado el tiempo. Si no me hacen caso, sacaré una trompeta de estas que se usan en el molinón para decir que el tiempo ha acabado. Pero bueno, vamos a empezar ya ahora sí con el primero de nuestros ponentes. Es toda una referencia en el mundo del emprendimiento y de la innovación. Marco María Pedrazo, ingeniero, arquitecto, experto en computación de diseño, que ahora nos explicará en qué consiste, estudios que abarcan desde el diseño humanitario hasta sistemas urbanos. Trabaja en proyectos del Mission Sensible City Lab junto a Carlo Ratti, que lamentablemente no ha podido llegar a tiempo. Investiga, por ejemplo, esto es muy interesante, el impacto de las tecnologías digitales en las ciudades, en sus habitantes, cómo la tecnología, en definitiva, puede mejorar nuestra vida, nuestra calidad de vida, y el tiempo nos ha demostrado que no todo lo nuevo es malo, sino que puede ser el inicio de una visión diferente de las cosas. Así que es tiempo ya de que Marco nos explique cómo se hace esta computación de diseño, cómo se hace esa unión de tecnologías y territorios. Y, de hecho, su título de esta ponencia se llama Diseño del territorio para una vida saludable. Marco, cuando quieras.
Whoop. Is this working actually? Can you hear me? Should we go for this one? Yeah. So, too much. Way too much. El nivel de mi español es muy básico, entonces voy a hablar en inglés. Thank you very much for having me here this wonderful day. Thank you very much to the guests and to the authorities that are here today. I would like to walk you through a set of different projects today, which comes from my professional activities in the last 10 years. Before doing that, I would like to tell you a little bit where I come from, what is my perspective on the built environment, the technology, the well-being, and the fitness. So, before the advent of the technological revolution, before everybody knew what computer was, before everybody had mobile phones in their pockets, some people dare to say that technology would have killed the physical space. If I can be in constant contact with everybody in the rest of the world, if I can work over Skype, if I can see the face of my girlfriend in Taiwan, what's the sense of being in close proximity? What's the sense of staying together? And cities were born to stay together, up to the point that some sociologists, some historians dare to say that cities, so the physical space, was a leftover baggage of the industrial era, something that was headed toward death. Now what we see after 20 years, 30 years actually, from the advent of the internet and the computers and so on and so forth, is that cities are thriving like never before. For the first time in the history, in 2008, the percentage of the population that lived in cities equaled the one living in the countryside, and it was like the first time in history, and the trend is going to increase at least until to 2030. So what happens? What we believe it had happened is that the digital has not put itself into competition with the physical space, but it has actually blanketed our cities, creating a whole new domain in between the digital layer and the physical layer. In that respect, every single item, it's potentially becoming also not just a physical atom, but also a bit, a digital entity that it's able to sense. Like everybody today is walking with at least 20 sensors in their pocket, for you to know. They're constantly recording our activities, where we are, the sounds that we hear, what the camera sees. Not only able to sense the environment around it, but also able to actuate back, to respond to these changes in the environment. So my company CRA, it's a company that does innovation by design. And what it actually means is that we are trying to push in every time a little bit the boundary in whatever types of project we work on, both at the object scale, the product design, the architecture design, the master planning design, and so on and so forth. The company is part of an ecosystem. The projects that you're going to see today as a matter of examples, and that I hope could be inspirational for you, are coming not just from CRA, which is the company I'm from, Carlo Ratti Associati in Turin. Was main base and headquarters are in Turin, but actually has a second office in the US, but also are coming from the other activity of Carlo Ratti, which is professor at MIT in a lab called Sensible City Lab. So in there, what they do is try to investigate at the higher level how technology is impacting the physical space. At CRA, what we do in CRA is actually to do design projects down to the level of the application. And you see around, there are a series of different other activities which are actually startups. I heard with pleasure that the introduction of the mayor related to the need of entrepreneurship. Those are actually activities that started from ideas and then took their own path, and now they're running by different people in an entrepreneurial way. So without further ado, the agenda for today, for this 40 minutes that we have ahead, It's in 3 chapters. I would like to discuss a little bit projects that investigate the environment, the city, and how unexpected it could be when you look at it from a different perspective. Second, I would like to talk about projects in technology whose result is into wellness and lifestyle, so at the level of the human being. And third, I would like to talk a little bit about the relationship between man and nature, the so-called biophilia. I'm not pretending this is an exhaustive set of things. It's really meant to be a set of experience that I would like to share so that maybe from somebody of the public some new ideas can happen, some critiques, some challenge, some different things that might spark your idea for entrepreneurial activity. So without further ado, let's start from the unexpected environment. This is a picture from here. I was here this summer while starting the Camino Trail from Oviedo to Santiago. And I came here with no technology. I needed really to detox. I just had my phone for safety purposes. But the plan was I'm coming here, and from Oviedo to Santiago, I'm not going to touch my mobile phone. But I needed some guidance. I mean, it was the first time for me being alone in this wonderful region. So I looked up. Prior to that, I cheated, saying like, what should I go see in Gijón? And it pointed me to the uphill in the historical city center, and that's how I went there. But halfway, I decided to change my mind, put the pocket back, hide Google Maps, and just started wandering around. And I ended up having a wonderful experience. This place is not put in the map. When you look on the web, the things to look at in Gijón, you don't see the skate park. I ended up spending 2 hours looking at those wonderful kids with the sunset. They were doing amazing tricks. It was a great experience. So that's to tell, like, that when you look through technology, with or without technology, from a different perspective, the city, you might end up in seeing things that you didn't expect. And that brings to the first project I would like to show you. It's a project by MIT Sensible City Lab, in which it's called Trash Track. What they did there was trying to see what happens to trashes from the moment in which we trash them. So we have a very well understanding about the products prior to they come to us. If you look at all the codes on that computer, you can Google it and know where all the single parts are coming from. We have no idea what happens when we put our plastic bottle in the trash, where it goes. So they put a GPS tag to a series of different products, and they simply trash it and look where they went. Here, this should be a simple video telling you the story. Let's see if it works. Yeah. There we go. So as I was saying, we don't know really what's happening to all these products. We have figured out the upstream, but not the downstream. And what it's not under our sight cannot be under control. So that's why we decided to keep track of all the little pieces, and especially in the US, where the differentiation of the trash, it's done manually. That's particularly relevant. So a series of different technology were applied. Most of the GPS track were also connected by a phone so that they can constantly communicate. They invited half a thousand people with all the possible types of trash, put them together, and send it out. That is what happened. Starting point, the day of the deployment, a massive stream in the local area. Then at the week, you see starting some objects that are going different part of the state, and then all across the country. And you can see there is plenty of inefficiencies of product going back and forth. There is a real need of optimization, and after a month even, there were objects that were still moving from one center to another. And it was the first time in history that we could have such an understanding of what's happening to every single piece of item. Another way of looking different at the world. Everybody speaks about big data. We have a fairly decent understanding of our city above ground. Most of the transportation systems are connected. Our cars starts becoming connected. Our buses tend to become connected. Our flights for sure are connected. We know nothing about what's happening below our feet. So again, in MIT they developed this, and not just this, a series of different robots that could go underwater and measure the quantity of bacteria and pollutants in a punctual way. So what happens is that through these different little robots, you send them underwater, and you can start having a series of data points. All these little dots that you see here are different bacteria and viruses within this neighborhood of Seoul. And all of a sudden you can start tracking, for example, which one are human related and which one are not. You can start tracking how the different diseases spread. And you can do that potentially city by city, block by block. And by doing so, you can have a wonderful predictive tools how different diseases can spread out in the city, and you can have a far better understanding of how you can control it according to that. This is just an example of a different neighborhood where the distribution of the different bacteria and viruses is different than the one we've seen before. The third project I would like to talk about is actually a series of projects that tells a little bit the methodology. This one in particular was the first prototype developed in Cambridge, with the idea that if we can understand what's happening both indoor and outdoor in our cities, we stop having the need of heating the whole volume of air in our buildings, and we can start heating up just where the people are. So this little object here is an infrared lamp that's directing heat towards the people at the passage of it. It's keeping track of the position and directing heat around that. I don't want too much further into this, rather than telling you that we move forward the concept. We started doing also the exact vice versa in Dubai for the Museum of the Future. Same concept. This one is a fixed canopy. When people are passing below, it recognizes its position and it cools down the area around them by spraying a little bit of water that can dry up and suck the heat, so creating this sort of comfort zone. And those two, you may say that it's just a prototype. It's nothing that looks like applicable on a large scale. But it's when you start thinking in prototypes, we get to a point in which we had the occasion of developing something relevant at scale. This is Agnelli Foundation. Agnelli is the family that owns FCA, Chrysler, Ferrari, all the major Italian car manufacturers. So in here, we developed the same concept, but in indoor. So we designed a system that could respond to the presence of people by keeping track of them, and person by person giving them back their own comfort bubble. If I prefer 20 degrees, I can have 20 degrees whether I am at my desk, or I am in a meeting room, or I am in a different environment within the building. Let's see if the video works. A little bit of suspense. It doesn't. Yeah, now you see it. So this is some images of the renovated interior part. What it's most relevant is that the same concept of heating and cooling at the scale of a single person was implemented through scale in a modular system. So from the baseline of 20 degrees, you can decide to go -2, +2. That was particularly important because the building was listed, so we could not intervene on, for example, on the insulations of the walls or into a different heat production system. But through this idea, we managed to reach a 30% decrease of the operational cost of the building, without compromising, of course, on the quality of life of the occupants. Wellness and lifestyle. Again, this is a picture taken not far from here. Technology can help us doing more. It's by definition what technology is. It's about tools that can enhance our ability. But what if we use them to do more physical activity? Usually tools are used to do less physical activity, less effort. So this was a project that started as a research project. Now it's a startup in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I had the luck to work for a year and a half. The question they started with was, how can we bring more people to use the bicycle in Copenhagen? Copenhagen has a 65% of commuting share by bike, which is already like huge. But the mayor wanted to invest some money on the research. How can we help them doing even more than that? So what we figure out by looking at the data is that bike is the most efficient commuting tool under 6.5 kilometers commuting distance. Over than that, it starts becoming equal to other means of transport, and over the 15 kilometers range, it's almost impossible to commute by bike because you get to work, you're covered in sweat, you need a shower, it becomes too complicated. So what we design is actually a very simple object in its essence, in its idea. Then inside it's a lot complicated, but outside the simple bicycle wheel, you can substitute it to your bike, whatever bike is it, and by just putting it, you transform your bike in a sort of electric hybrid that can increase your commuting distance by assisting you. You don't need to use throttle, you don't need to use particular brake, you don't have any wirings. It still looks like your bike, but with a 35 kilometer range assisted pedaling. Of course, it is assisted by mobile phone, in which you can choose, for example, to have assistance just when you're going uphill, or to run in eco mode, or to run in turbo mode. It was particularly fascinating when I was working there. I used to drive the prototypes, and Cambridge is right outside Boston, on the other side of a long bridge, and by using the turbo mode, I was faster than a car from out of every stoplight. It was particularly fun. So this is the video issue as always. We need to be very patient with technology. So this is the object, more or less. Within the hub, there is an electric hybrid, the electrical engine for 250 watts. It connects to mobile phone as a kind of lock-in-unlocking system, so it cannot be stolen because it doesn't work without your own mobile phone. And all of a sudden, you can use this kind of tools to enlarge the range of potential commuting. And how did we get there? Of course, by prototyping. We tried different configuration, different tests. when we decided to spin off the company from the research project, we redid the project from scratch. So we had a working prototype, but it took other 5 years to get into a production that could be shipped to the final user. When you backpedal in the last prototype, it could recover the electricity, more or less like it happens in Formula One sport cars with the cares. And on top of that, we equipped the wheel with a series of sensors that could detect the quality of the city. So all of a sudden, you not also have a multiplier of your range for commuting, for your biking distance, but you also have a tool to track, for example, the amount of noise, the amount of pollution, the amount of potholes within the city. This is a most recent project. It's still at the feasibility study level, meaning that we are looking for an area to implement it that could give us the support doing so. It was born out of a competition in Paris. Paris is running a series of very interesting competition in which it gives the availability of the space, which is a municipal space, and asks developer and designer to join forces to bid on an area. And they are evaluating 50-50 the quality of the proposal from the perspective of the impact on the city and the economical offer. So what we designed here is actually a system to travel along the Seine River together with all the piers and the part of the fixed equipment that will stay on the water, to travel on the Seine from a different perspective. It's actually a full, complete gym which is powered by the energy of people that are spinning inside it, and a few sets of PV panel on top. So together with the touristic tour, let's say, there is a chance also doing physical activities no matter what's the weather, especially true in Paris, which has at least 6 months of bad weather a year. And we also decided to exploit all the wind to give information about the city for the touristic purposes. Food, very important for well-being. We had the luck to intervene in the Expo 2015 in Milan. We were assigned a sort of shoebox, a big shoebox, with the question what the future of food distribution would look like. We started reasoning in terms of logistical distribution and all the information that are embedded into products, where they're coming from, so on and so forth. So the first thing we did from a technical perspective is to say it's better to move goods where it's easy to move them, so on the ground floor, and detach that space from the space of the supermarket. So in order to maximize the amount of surface of the supermarket, we layered the warehouse in the bottom, and we kept the supermarket in the top. So what happened while you do that is that all of a sudden you can create a sort of market-like environment in which you can display things on tables rather than on aisle, detaching this sort of alienation from the product that we have today when you are walking into aisles and you are just immersed into products. So within this environment, what we said is that, again, we know everything of all our digital products, but we don't know really nothing about our groceries, because everything is condensed in a very small label. So we created this sort of system up here that was recognizing the presence of people, and in the moment in which somebody was trying to reach for a product, it was popping out information. First, the very basic one: who's the producer, how much does it cost? But if you stay there for more time, it was giving you further information, such as who is, from which field the crop was harvested, or for example, all the allergens that are contained within, all the nutritional values, and so on and so forth. So without compromising the interaction with products and food, with interfaces, touch screens, or other similar elements, we were able to give people more awareness on what they were eating if they wanted to. Fun enough, in the expo, nobody was expecting people to do the shopping. A lot of people ended up doing the shopping, and they kind of doubled the amount of the revenues coming from the supermarket in respect to their expectation in the 6 months of the expo. Third and last topic I would like to talk about is biophilia, which is, as a definition, is the love of nature. There are a lot of studies that tells us that human beings need at some point to have a healthy interaction with the natural environment. And this is becoming especially true because we spend most of our days in front of hard and reflective surfaces, the screen of our mobile phone, the screen of our laptops, the desk in our offices, and so on and so forth. So we work a little bit on that concept, both with and without technology, trying to explore which kind of interaction we could foster with nature. The first project we did was four-season garden. The idea here is to create 4 areas in which the heat was taken one side and brought to the other side at almost zero balance. That almost zero can turn into a zero by means of solar panel, and give people this sort of interaction with different natural environments within the same day. We had the chance to apply the first time during the design week in Milan last year, in May. And this is kind of how it looked like. This is still a rendering. So this is the actually built up. All these little squares are different seasons. And by entering here, you could experience like a full winter to a full summer, all the different steps. And we were doing that again by simply creating this sort of heat exchange that could drag the heat from the winter and bring it into the summer. This, I believe, is the last project I'm going to talk about. The greenery, we had the luck to work on a residential project. It's always very difficult to incorporate the natural element in our buildings because of a space issue. Like the more you occupy the indoor environment with outdoor elements, the less space and real estate you have for your indoor activities. The owner of this house is a industrial entrepreneur, and he is working in the food industry. And what I found incredibly fascinating about him was that he kept this relationship with nature very strong. He wants that to come up in his products, but also in his life. So he was living still in his countryside, in the countryside house that was owned by his grandparents. And we did the sort of renovation, and we specifically looked at ways to bring in the nature within the environment. And we ended up considering the fact that it's actually not so complicated doing so if we really want it. So, for example, all the surfaces that are overlooking outside can become working surfaces in which you have a visual connection with the outdoor environment and with the plants. We ended up also inserting in a double height space a whole tree. And again, that was more a matter of will than actually a matter of real possibility. And again, I'm going to close up and wrap this presentation up and then open it for questions. By making sure that this presentation was not something that meant to say those are the directions we need to go to, but this is more a matter of this is how we try to explore different ways. For every successful project that you saw today, there were at least 3 that were totally unsuccessful, and that's the way it is. Like when you do any entrepreneurial activities, that's just the way it is. You have to try things. And Alan Kay, who's a computer scientist, is actually one whose studies created the personal computer. Is the inventor of programming by object, which is the base for any Windows software. Used to say that the only way to predict what's the future trajectory, it's try to invent it. So I really hope that this was of inspiration for you, and that this could spark some idea that can be relevant here for the territory and relevant for the region and relevant for at an international scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco, for your speech. I think we have some time for questions. Vamos a abrir un breve turno de preguntas, si alguno tiene alguna para Marco sobre estos proyectos que ha comentado. Tengo un poco los focos, ahí veo una mano en alto, y levantándola, por favor, y se acercará alguien con un micrófono. Ahí está.
Part of the question.
Thank you for coming here. It's a pleasure to hear you.
It's a pleasure being here.
I'm asking you are you working out of the earth now? Are you planning to construct, to create different projects out of the earth?
I have to say that we never explored that. And I'm one of those people that thinks that I think that we're lucky there are some people that have that drive towards high technology and explore different possibility outside the Earth. I really think there is so much to do down here that probably would be like too big of a step. There's also a problem related to skill sets. As you saw, all those projects involve very different types of technologies. We are a 50 people company, which is mid-size to small. And we have to keep it that way, because when you want to have invention, you have to have a real strong exchange of ideas. So you need to know the people and feel free to interrupt them and challenge their ideas, and be also a little bit violent in the conversation sometimes. This means that every time that we do a project, what we do is to create a concept, pair it with the feasibility study. We have in-house engineers, mathematicians, and social studies experts. But whenever it gets to implementation, we have to build a team outside of our company to bring it to reality. If you consider that out of space, that would be a huge endeavor. Like in order to build up a team to really create prototypes that goes outside of the Earth, it's a big challenge. And you really need to focus probably just on that in order to be able to do so. Versus what we're trying to do is trying to maximize the impact on the built environment, the urban environment, which is where we have data to analyze and to work on. I hope that answered that question. Thank you.
No sé si alguien más. Aquí veo. Ya se está acercando por ahí. Perfecto. No sé, están pasando el micrófono.
Buenos días, soy Don Inglés. Mi nombre es Don Franco. Muchas gracias por tu presentación. Dentro de lo que la sensórica es necesaria para tener en el futuro ciudades eficientes, se habla mucho de la innovación y se habla muy poco del control. Es decir, por ejemplo, Ancabuquia, la promotora del Pragmatic Design en los años 80, ha dimitido hace un mes del proyecto de Toronto entre Google y Citywalk, porque en vez de ciudades eficientes construían ciudades marginadas, como vemos que ha ocurrido en Chile. ¿Qué opinión tienes sobre eso? Gracias.
I think it's a really good point. Actually, my master degree studies was on the opportunity, on the possibility, on the technical limitation, and on the opportunity at the end of the day of creating a model, a system of algorithms that could sense the environment and design the best possible city distribution. So a kind of an input-output system. My conclusion within that field of study was that it was not just inopportune, meaning it would have limited too much the variability in the city, which are the one that creates actually interesting environments, but also it was not really working. Because in the city is such a complex system in which when you touch a part, you already modify the whole environment, so the input data that you would use are already different. I don't know, if the mayor decided in the next 2 weeks to advertise to the public that they will create a small no-tax zone, a small sandbox for innovation, even if there's none of that, that would have changed the perception of the city, within the city and outside of the city. So it's a very complex environment. Christopher Alexander wrote a book called A City is Not a Tree, to signify that. It's not like a computer in which data are just branched in an organized manner. They are complex, so they're all intertangled, and whenever you touch something, all the rest changes. That's why in all the projects that we propose, we don't go for what they call smart city. We call it sensible city. And the huge difference is not about creating a structure for data to flow in a sort of single direction, so from the bottom up to a central item. But it's always about using what it is already existing. Mobile phones, little objects, the cars, the sensors that are on the transit system, to look at the city in a sort of anonymized way. And there's a huge difference between having this kind of top and bottom approach versus a single top-down approach. The top-down approach is the China one that you mentioned. It's really scary, because all of a sudden you can know at every moment who is going where. There's no sense of anonymization of the data. Cameras are using facial recognition to give a social score to people. That's really scary. And it's not actually what we are advocating for. We are advocating for a technology that can provide you services in exchange of data in a transparent manner. So I'll make you an example. Personally, I don't share position data with Google because I don't see the value in it. In the moment in which they will demonstrate the value that I get by providing them those data, I might do so. The problem is that there is little information nowadays regarding it, and I think that the GDPR regulation on privacy in Europe has made a huge step. And we're just at the beginning of it, because I don't know if you know it, but from May this year, you own your data, which seems like a small thing, but before, your data were owned by the company who was collecting it. And what this means is that if all the people in this room decides to call back the data that Google has about them, Google would have an economical loss. So this means that all of a sudden we have power. We are just missing the tools to do so, but it's just a matter of time, because I hope that smart entrepreneur would create those tools. It would be pretty easy. The same goes for Facebook, the same goes for all the different services that are connecting data points towards you. And all of a sudden you will be able to exchange that for money, for services, for whatever. It will become a more fair position. I hope that answered your question.
¿Alguna pregunta más? Sí. Vamos a intentar de todas maneras, también Marco, preguntas cortitas, respuestas cortitas, para que sí pueda participar el mayor número de personas. ¿De acuerdo? Adelante.
Hello, my name is Iván Díaz Pinilla. You talk about lifestyle and movement activity, physical, no, create your body and fitness. I ask for, when you create a film, for example, a symbol, Iran filming, and the woman in the society is considered like a mask. I can explain, but
Puedes hacer la pregunta en español también si quieres, ¿eh?
Spanish is fine. I got like wonderful translator here at hand. Technology.
Que la pregunte en español.
Sí, sí.
Está bien.
O sea, que a la mujer, si por ejemplo se la usa como un recurso o símbolo en el cine, luego se la persigue alrededor de esas marchas que hubo de Bulgaria a Alemania. ¿Qué opina de eso en la sociedad, ¿no? En INCYDE. Y ya que Italia es un país que genera contenido multimedia.
I think that we have to be very. First of all, I think it's a little bit outside the domain of the conference, but I will try to be super brief in explaining. I think that we are in a particular moment of change in which we are heading towards a more and eventually egalitarian system. That it's definitely what we should really strive for. I think that of course has some hiccups in the process and some instances in which we step back instead of going forth, but I think it's a process that is well on its way, and it's little related to technology rather than to cultural aspects. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I think that...
Estamos ya casi fuera de tiempo. Una pregunta más si nos vamos al café. Veo en el pasillo, pero no sé si alguien antes.
Hi, I was wondering, how do you and your team take time to research and understand the problem you want to solve through design? And also, how do you measure the impact of your designs in the real world with real humans?
Yeah. So on the one hand, we're very lucky because we are in constant contact with the MIT side, whose only work is researching. So that also helps us a lot to get constantly updated about the latest trends and discoveries and so on and so forth. I have to say that that's the most difficult part of my job personally, because by being responsible of the research side and business development, I'm the one who has to tell clients technically that they need to pay us for not doing anything but research for the first part of the collaboration. But there's no way we can deliver something successful to them without doing so. So it's tough, but it's just the way it is. Like you cannot come up with something innovative if you don't spend time understanding what are the boundaries of the existence of the technologies, and how you can push a little bit the boundaries to create something new. Innovation, by definition, is something that hasn't been done before. So if you don't know what's before, you cannot do innovation. That's the chicken and egg problem, kind of.
Pues muchas gracias, Marco. Vamos ahora sí a tomarnos un descansito, tiempo para un café que está servido en el hall, y reanudamos las próximas ponencias 12:05, 12:10. Vamos con la segunda ponencia de de esta cumbre. Turno para Alexander Graham. Bienvenido.
Enchanté.
Responsable de estrategia de INCYDE, Institute for Identity. Es una consultora británica especializada en definir las líneas estratégicas para ayudar a territorios a definir, a vivir, a comunicar sus propósitos. Básicamente lo que busca es la clave de su atracción, su clave interna, qué es lo que le hace diferente o único y poder explotarlo y exportarlo. Y de ello nos va a hablar Alexander en una ponencia que se llama La gestión de marcas territoriales y el deporte como atributo de valor. Adelante, Alexander.
Thank you. Okay, I will speak English today because my Spanish is not so good yet. So if you have a chance to put the headphones on, that would help. From the past experience of speaking in Spain. So, shall we? Okay. I work, as you know, at Institute for Identity. And we're known for working with different places, but best known from the Guardian article, How to Sell the Country, which was quite provoking at the time. Well, in fact, we help selling anything from people to God, as I like to say. Most people, place branding, most people see place branding as developing pretty visuals. We don't see it this way, yet our graphic design team is very keen on developing logos, and we all sort of love them. So just for starters, to put it off, I wanted to show you some of them that our team is most proud of. Thank you. Well, the visuals are normally the most visible and the most exciting thing about place branding to the outsiders. So that's normally worth showing, because all the concepts and all the other work stays behind curtain. But I think it's enough of place branding today. Let's talk about something meaningful. Let's talk about love. It's love, or lack of it, that defines us. It's love that makes us unique. Love makes us do seemingly irrational things. Love makes us want to live, grow, develop, and succeed. It makes us rich, it makes us fulfilled and happy. Now, how is love related to the basic concept of identity? And that is how. We love our country if we do. We love our city. We love our profession, our company, our hobby, our football club, our God, and whatever else we can love. We define ourselves through meaningful things, through something that matters to us and the others. And a person defines themselves as many things. So let's play this little game of how you define yourselves, and be prepared to raise hands. So, who defines themselves as human? Who defines themselves as male? Who defines themselves as Spanish? Christian? Vegan? Cat lovers? Coffee lovers? Barcelona fans? Real Madrid fans? Europeans? Young? Very nice. So basically, if you look around, you'll have an idea of the people's identity. Well, family people. Nice. And Rich. Okay, well. So anything, these are all different identities. And anything that goes after the words I am is a part of a person's identity, a part of your identity, in fact. And why these identities are important? Because they form your way of life. And they fulfill three basic needs of a contemporary human being. And these are needs for community, a need for structure, and a need for meaning. And these are the main, the most fundamental needs in a contemporary world. So the more a city, a church, or a sport club, or a company, corporation fulfills these needs, the more place it takes into humans' lifestyle. And why would they do that? Because they compete for your resources. And what resources do you have? And you normally, when you normally ask an individual, they struggle to say, well, they say money. But apart from money, they have physical energy, they have rights of vote, they have time, they have attention, they have money, and whatnot. Sometimes properties, sometimes these and that resources. Anything that they can spare. And different institutions and communities compete for these resources. And obviously people, if they successfully provide the three or answers to these three needs, the community, structure, and the meaning, people willingly invite them into their lives and live their way. And that's what places normally struggle to deal with. Because if a place, let's say a town, Gijón, that's where we are, if it struggles to provide meaning to the people, then especially young people who are more acute in this globalized world without borders, they leave their town, their birthplace, they go elsewhere. And that's how the cities and countries create create brain drain for themselves. That's how they lose the best, most mobile, the most ambitious people. And that's how, and that's what leads them into depression. And then there's a question, so how do we deal with it? How do we provide meaning, or especially meaning, to people? And the answer is through what we call identity work. well, part of it is what we call place branding. And that's what we do. That's how we work with corporations, wealthy individuals, and places alike. That's the basic, a very simplified model of our work. It has a shape of an hourglass. So basically, this is one model divided into 2 slides to make it more visible. First, it narrows down, and then it widens out again. So initially, we look at what's there, and the purpose is to uncover the essence of the place or a company or an individual. And then once we've done it, we project it into any context we're interested in, and produce sometimes the corporate lifestyle, sometimes produce the experience of the place, sometimes produce the presence of the person in any given context, like in a work context, or in the politics, or in the media. So, but it's always the same. The principle is always the same. And again, the point here is, through research, to uncover what we call the archetypal quality, whereas it's the core quality or the essence of the subject in question. So we uncover it, and then we meaningfully communicate it in a very consistent, systemic fashion, culturally relevant fashion, to a relevant audience. And that's all it takes. So basically, if we talk about places, we look when we come to some, let's say, city or a country invites us to work with it and to make sense of what they are. We look at what's on the outside, which is that you can see history. That's their success stories, their failures. We look at their heroes, at what they do best, what they do not so well, what they struggle with, the victories, and so on and so forth. Their statistics and everything, and natural environment, which actually, the environment actually influences a lot of how people think and behave. And so we look at all these things on the outside, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper by asking what it actually means. So we discover something in some trend or some occurrences, and we ask what it actually means. So we look for meaning, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper until we hit the rock bottom, until we arrive to that essential quality, or what we call archetypal quality. And then it tells us everything and explains everything about the place, everything, and then it also explains how we should communicate, what user experience we should create for the place, or the place should create for itself, what it should communicate to its own citizens, what it should communicate to tourists, what it should communicate to the government, what it should communicate to consumers of their products, and so forth, what it should communicate to the world. And the tricky thing here, actually, is if we talk about the quality, because when I say archetypal quality, how many people know the word archetype? Well, quite a few, but still not everybody. But in any case, well, the quality, when we say essence of the place, normally it's taken for granted. But the trick is that in a globalized world, people and places and companies seem to be all the same. They all seem to be grey. It's very comforting to be conforming. And people look the same, eat the same, say the same things, share the same things globally, admire the same things, hate the same things. Now you can see every now and again, you can see articles that politics are boring, well, apart from Trump, obviously, Putin. Politics are boring because there are not many people who are capable of doing daring things. And that's why, when you look at the places are also the same. They say what they say, something that has no substance, like we are great, or we are also good, or love us, or we love you, or we're the best. But it has no substance. It's very, how shall I put it? It's very hollow, and very, very few understand that they must take a position. They must indeed uncover their innate quality, and must take that position. And obviously, if they become, let's say, yellow, or blue, or purple, they only attract people who are susceptible to that color, and they deter the rest. But the trick here is, yes, you do deter the rest, but you build love here. You make your people love you and be loyal and fight for you, because love is unconditional, and they will fight for you no matter what. And that's why it's very important to take a stand, to uncover your own meaning and destiny, and follow it. So that's how it works with the places, but it's also same way it works with industries, same way it works with sports, because we talk about sports here today, same way it works with corporations, churches, individuals, as people like you and me. To illustrate this principle, let's look at the example of two places we had a privilege to work with simultaneously. There are two places. One is Lipetsk region, and the other one is Irkutsk, a city in Russia. And, well, they're both located in Russia. And we worked with them at the same time. And they are very opposite, and we'll see why, and we'll see how we arrived to that conclusion, that solution. And well, just very interesting to see how the model that I showed you before, how it works in relation to places. So shall we just look at them? So it's Lipetsk region in Russia. It's close to everything, but it's actually in the middle of nowhere. A very young region, nothing special at all. It was formed by cutting off pieces of 5 neighboring regions. So it doesn't have much, like 60 years ago, doesn't have much of its own history, doesn't have much loyalty of its own people. People used to belong to different regions, so there's not much unity. And every year they would summon, the government and the state officials would summon and would sit and think, how are we different from the neighboring regions? What can we sell to our people? What can we sell to tourists? How can we sell ourselves to federal government? How do we talk about ourselves? What do we say of what we are? And every year, from year to year, they struggle to define themselves. And well, and finally they invited us to work with them. So, but they are, as I said, they're in the middle of nowhere, nothing special. Everything is very simple, and working with them, that's me to the left, as you can recognize. I lost about 10 kilos, so I look better now. So the research was very easy, very nice, very lively. It's all simple. You see, simple culture, simple crafts, simple, nice people. simple lifestyle, very pleasant. People are stable, close to the ground, work on their land, love their land, churchgoers, slightly infantile, they vote the same thing every year, every election. They have the same, or they used to have the same governor for 20 years, which is very unusual for Central Russia. And therefore, we arrived to the archetype of what is called the innocent in the marketing archetype system. And we realized that they should sell, that's their strength, this innocence, this lightness. That's what they should sell. And therefore, the user experience that they should sell to their own people is stability. That is very valuable in the current economic climate. What they should sell to stability and natural life, let's put it this way. What they should sell to tourists is a perfect childhood summer vacation, a perfect weekend without any worries, any hustle, a hustle-free holiday, and very natural, very close to earth, and that's what they started happily selling. Because before they didn't know what it would be, and they saw actually they're plain everything, like the land is plain there. There are no mountains, no hills, nothing. Plain, but very fertile. And they saw, and they thought, well, there's nothing. And we said, that's what you sell. Stability, fertility, growth, very incremental development. Same with investors. What would investors love there? Because people are stable. People are not rebels. People, if you agreed with them, they keep the agreement, they keep the arrangement, they respect it. Well, that was let's say even their exhibition stand looked like a garden patio with a round table full of teas and apples, and people would come there and people would spend a lot of time there just chilling and relaxing. And that's the experience that the region, that archetypal experience that the region created at the exhibition stand. Because most regions, again, or most cities would say, we are great, we're the best, great technology, and this and that and that, but they would fail to create the actual experience at the exhibition for the user, for the person who would come there, for potential tourists, for a potential investor, and that was that garden patio was the way to actually create that experience, and that was very successful. And now let's look at the city of Irkutsk, which is complete opposite from the place we looked at previously. And because it is located very far from anything on Earth, it is so it's an isolated location, also in the middle of nowhere, but again, it is surrounded by vast spaces, vast empty spaces. It's in Siberia. It's in the middle of taiga in the mountains and all sorts. And it was formed by adventurous and ambitious people, rebels, adventure seekers, who invested everything in the search of fur animals, because the lands there were rich with the fur animals. Then it was formed by rebels who rebelled against Tsar and the government, and gave away everything, gave away their titles and money and everything to to start a revolution, they were sent out to further away from the capital. They were sent out to Irkutsk, and they were formed by people who suffered in Stalin's repressions, and they were formed by surrounding nature, which is a massive. That's the most massive lake on Earth. Nobody knows how deep it is. Nobody knows how vast taiga is. Well, there are mountains, and they even say that we're surrounded by stars, because apparently the visibility of the space is slightly different there. They think that stars are actually closer to them than, let's say, in Moscow or anywhere on the planet. And so, can you imagine the people that are surrounded by all that, by all these forces of nature, and whose ancestors are rebels and adventure seekers, and that all that informed that these people became like gods. They became forces of nature. And it's very difficult to survive there, especially in the winter, where it's -40. In the summer, it's +30 Celsius. In the winter, it's -40 Celsius. It's tricky to survive. Now it's easier, but still many people die there. And they developed that stamina. They developed that ability to rely only on themselves. They developed this, the cult of a personality, if you like, and again, sustain that rebellious nature. And that's why it's them who discovered Alaska. It's them who conquered California. It's them who actually took icebergs from Alaska and sold them in California for drinking water. They thought about it. It's them who developed supersonic jets, and it's them who did a lot of space science, and it's them who developed architecture that looks more like spaceships or cruise ships, but not houses, and it's called brutalist. It's called Siberian brutalism. It looks like nothing else on the planet. Very special architecture style, and it's basically that's what the people look like. They're somewhere between the Earth and space, and obviously, archetypally. If you look at their archetypal quality, remember we mentioned the archetypal quality. Well, look at it. Obviously, they are rebels. And therefore, the experience that they ought to provide to tourists, even to investors, in fact, and that's what they never fail to provide to the government, is rebellious experience that blasts people's brain out, that explodes their hearts and souls and builds them into space, makes them feel, for seconds even, makes them feel like gods or forces of nature. And that is all reflected in, that's the kind of interesting people we had to deal with in Irkutsk. And that's all reflected in the visual style, because again, all we can see on the screen is the visual style. So it's very irrational, very erratic, very unstable, very irregular, rough, uncomforting, provoking. So it's all pretty much like that. Even when we took pictures of people, they were supposed to look like rock stars. Rebellious personalities. Well, we've seen quite a bit of that in the initial clip, but still it's maybe worth looking at it again. There's one problem with defining the essence of the place, defining that archetypal quality, is that people who live there, they don't seem to like it, they don't seem to value it, and because for them it's a norm, it's how they live. They don't see anything special in it. They see it as plain boring. And for instance, with that Lipetsk region, they say, well, stability there's nothing exciting about stability. Let's build a Formula One ring. Let's do something exciting. And we spent quite a bit of time to persuade them that stability sells. And when they started doing it, they actually realized that it sells, and it sells very well. And it appeals to the federal government, it appeals to tourists, it appeals to families who would come there for stability. And same thing with Irkutsk. When they saw the visuals, when they heard the ideas, they got a bit shocked initially, because they being themselves being rebels, they craved quite the opposite. They wanted more sort of tradition, more continuity, quite naturally. And it's quite tricky to explain to people that what they want, that in most cases, they want what they're not, they want what they lack. And that's why it's important to have an external perspective. Because if you come and ask people what they are about, and they would say quite the opposite from what they are. So if we bring together people who live in this lovely town and have a session about let's define ourselves, I'm pretty confident that you will arrive to that you will drift in a very different direction from what the outside viewer would see. And it is, well, throughout our work, we found that it's very important to persuade people that there are 3 rules of success. First, it's be yourself. Second, do what you do best. And third, let others buy it. And they're very simple rules. Although most people, when they think about it, most people find it difficult because it actually applies to individuals and companies alike. But most people find it later very, very difficult. But they're simple rules, and if you follow them, that's the actual road to success. So, recalling the model of identity work that we looked at previously, I can say that you use it when you distill the meanings and arrive to the archetypal quality, and then you project the quality into the chosen context. It works with any subject. Like you can choose how you can make an industry popular, how you can make being employed popular, how you can make a particular profession like a policeman or policewoman popular, how military popular, particular sport popular. That's the same way. Now, sadly, we have to sort of reinvent the wheel. Although when we studied the practice of the Soviet Union, in the Soviet Union, it was called ideology work, and they were particularly successful in doing it. But now many practices are well forgotten and archived and are not really used. But they're very efficient. Saying that, it doesn't mean that you do it once and for all and forget about it. You have to do it constantly. You have to revise it. You have to keep the meaning and actualize it. It's like you actualize the tradition, because the world is changing, as you well know, probably better than me. The formats are changing. At some point they invented A4, at other point of time they invented the screen, then they invented the vertical screen, and then, so forth. And the formats are changing, and you have to actualize the meaning to the new formats, to create a meaningful content for the people, that you feed people. And that's why we actually developed a format which is called, well, it is relevant for regions, which is called the Region for Development, the Center for Development of a Regional Identity. The people there, on the one hand, keepers of that essence of the place, and on the other hand, they're producers of the regional lifestyle. And if there's a question, like they take care of the regional style, if there's a question, how do we build a place, how do we build a development, like a building in our style, then there is an answer. If there is a question, how do we decorate a hotel in our style, our way, then there is an answer, because these people know what the region is about and they're fluent in applying it to any context. How do we develop a city day or a region's celebration day in our style? And again, there's an answer to that. So this work should be done constantly to in order again to be able at any given time to provide to people the sense of community, structure, and the meaning, and to take most part in their lives. In conclusion, I wanted to show you a couple of projects that we love, because remember, we started from love and we must finish with love to make the complete experience. So we, as an Institute for Identity, we are working with the contemporary Russian style, because the trouble is that, again, Russia struggles to define itself, and it has been struggling for a couple of decades to do so, and therefore there's no known and universally accepted Russian style. There are also questions, so what is a Russian style? What is it about? And people look at the folklore, they look at the roots, but they're not relevant in the modern times. And therefore, and I must tell you that we bring together experts from very different fields, and it takes us hundreds of man-hours to work on it. And it's a very uneasy task, but a very rewarding one. Then there's another project of developing, the client, one massive bank, wanted to develop the smart city of the future, not far from Moscow, and Zaha Hadid Architects, London company, God bless their souls, they decided to bring us on board. And because that's the city of the future, remember? And it was important to plan it, to build it, and to program it to be relevant in 20, 30, 50 years' time, because it will be completed in around 50 years' time. And again, our deepest gratitude to Zaha Hadid Architects for realizing that and for agreeing with us that you work with you work with identity fundamentals ahead of urban planning, ahead of architectural planning. So they started with the idea, with the ideology, with planning the community, like doing this social structure, with planning the city tradition, modeling city tradition ahead of the actual planning of infrastructure and architecture. And the third, our favorite project is what we call a global souvenir brand. When we're just launching it, but the idea is to create souvenirs that reflect the essence of every place, not the who had the experience of seeing the same souvenirs made in China, the very same models, which say Oslo or Brussels or Madrid, but same model, and they just changed the names. Who experienced that? Who saw these souvenirs? Because they do these key rings and other things, and they look the same. And this is appalling because a tourist wants to bring, or a visitor wants to bring the memory of the place, wants to bring the memory of his experience of the place, and instead they bring some meaningless piece of junk. And the point of this project is to develop the meaningful souvenirs by bringing two parts: external perspective of experts in identity work and talent of local artists. And that's why we call it glocal, so global and local, two perspectives. And good luck, wish us good luck with that, because we want to sort of maybe revolutionize the souvenir market and make it exciting and meaningful to tourists. And here I would love to conclude with and thank you for being patient, and yes, thank you. One quick question: who made sense of what I just said? Who didn't quite understand what it was about? Okay, who found in what I just said something, what I spoke about, something useful that you can use in your everyday practices from tomorrow? Well, that's a very good result, and I'm very, thank you, I'm very pleased with that, and thank you again.
Thank you, Alessandro. Vamos muy mal de tiempo, pero no me gustaría que Alessandro se fuera. Si tenéis alguna pregunta, sí os pido máxima brevedad en la pregunta y también en la respuesta, Alessandro. ¿Alguien tenía alguna pregunta? ¿Habéis visto las manos alzadas? Sí, ahí en el pasillo.
Any questions? Questions.
I should probably start by saying that I'm an anthropologist, so the concept of identity is so important in my work. So thanks for bringing it up at an entrepreneurial setting, because we don't usually talk of identity and economic and smart cities and sports. So what I wanted to ask you is, how do you and your team make sure to represent diversity when you are creating an essence? And also, how do you make sure that you are, in a way, making locals happy with the identity you're building for them? And you mentioned that it was hard to sometimes explain what you as an outsider are learning or understanding from the city or the region, and that they saw it differently. So how do you end up communicating and making sure that they're happy with what you're creating for them? And thanks.
Gracias por la concreción.
Well, what was the first part of the question, sorry?
The first part was, how do you make sure that you represent the diversity, the local diversity of a city or a region in an essence?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question, because basically our task is, when we come to a company or to a region or to a city, our task is not to see the diversity, but to actually look at it and see it as one element in the system, and therefore diversity stays there. So we study diversity. It's our objective to identify different forces, different groups, different stakeholders in the, well, let's talk about the city region, and then we keep them in mind, but we sort of represent them later when we give them ready-made products or when we adapt principles to their context so they understand how to use them. So that's about diversity. And how to make locals happy. Boy, that is difficult. And we decided not to. Because it's very tricky. Because as I said, when you tell them what they are, they said, no, it's boring, it's not us, and because they don't see themselves. And it's like a person says, I'm a Napoleon, and a doctor said, well, you're just a bit cuckoo. I said, no, I'm a Napoleon. So that's pretty much the same thing. But it's very important to ignite, to get a leader, political leader, and convince them, make them excited, and they do the work. So they become the champion of the whole style. And what we figured out, initially we thought, let's make it all public, let's go to the media, talk to the press, let's bring together public. And then we got so disappointed by that approach because we thought people would love us because we are like Jesus Christ. And then we understood what Jesus Christ, because he was crucified. And so were we in a couple of places. And then I got my creative director depressed for 6 weeks and lose a lot of money through that. So we later, within time, we turned this business into quiet business. So we do this work quietly. Obviously, we work with the local artists and creative community, sort of the most active people, and some media, to an extent. But we're now trying to make this work quietly and just implement the results so that changes were almost unnoticeable. And then people swallow it, they accept it because it is fine. But when it's fine to them when they see it casually. But if you talk about it, it's very difficult for people to talk about themselves. When they start thinking about themselves, there are lots of conflicting, thoughts and perceptions and misconceptions. And it is very difficult. Whereas if you casually show something to them or say something to them, they accept it because that's what they are. But yes, that's a super question. Thank you. Did I answer that?
Oh, yeah, it did. Thanks.
Vamos todavía peor de tiempo. Si acaso una pregunta y una respuesta telegráfica, si alguien tiene alguna, y si no ya pasamos a la siguiente ponencia. Pues Alexander, lo dejamos aquí. Muchísimas gracias.
That's everything.
It's finished.
Okay. Thank you very much again.
Y bueno, venimos de hablar, gracias. Venimos de hablar de deporte y territorio, y si hay un deporte que impacta directamente en un territorio es el Sporting en la ciudad de Gijón. Es un nexo tan fuerte que yo creo que no se puede entender la ciudad sin el club, ni el club sin la ciudad y su gente y su afición. Yo no os voy a contar la historia del Sporting, que bien la sabéis aquí mucho mejor que yo. Es uno de los clubes más antiguos de España, amén del mío, que yo soy de Huelva y está ahí el Recre, pero sí es de los más antiguos. Y sí os voy a contar los valores que representa: esfuerzo, sacrificio, juego limpio, afán de superación, ánimo que no queda nada para volver a primera. Y todos esos valores los canaliza la Fundación Escuela de Mareo del Sporting, al frente de la cual está Germán Robles, que aunque compartamos apellido, que yo sepa, no somos todavía familia. Un fuerte aplauso para Germán.
Buenas tardes ya a todos. En primer lugar, agradecerles a todos su presencia, autoridades, Rubén, director gerente de Impulsa. Hoy es un día especial para nosotros. Estar en un congreso de este tipo, sin lugar a duda, es para el club y para la Fundación una gran oportunidad. Si les parece, vamos a ir rápido porque los tiempos apremian y vamos a intentar de alguna forma ajustarnos a esta presentación. Hemos tenido la fortuna de disfrutar de dos exposiciones brillantes por parte de Rati y también de Gran, y sin duda alguna, bueno, de una forma más modesta, vamos a intentar nosotros hacer un pequeño trasiego a lo largo del camino de generación de marca y por qué el deporte puede ser un aliado estratégico importante. La estructura de la presentación consta de 4 puntos. Primero, sin duda alguna, los antecedentes, por qué el deporte y en concreto